Welcome to our first Idea Funding information session. We're super excited to have you all on for this call, and we appreciate you taking some time at the end of your day to join us and learn all about Idea Funding 2026. We will be recording this, so if you see the record button, that way you all can access it later. But we'll go ahead and get started with just some brief intros, and then we have a presentation and we have our guest who will be going over pitch tips and tricks. So my name is Casey Carrillo. I am the Executive Director for the University of Arizona Center for Innovation, or UACI. We also have Aliana Compass on our team as well. She is joining us. And then Liz.
My name is Liz Pocock. I'm the CEO of Startup Tucson, that is the host of the 10 West Festival. From our team, we have Megan, Paige, and Kanisha also joining us.
We're going to go ahead and get started. We have some slides that we're going to go through, and then again, we'll toss it over for really the bulk of why we're all here tonight. So Idea Funding is hosted by UACI and Startup Tucson. Both UACI and Startup Tucson really focuses on serving entrepreneurs and innovators here in Southern Arizona. We work very closely together on idea funding and other initiatives as UACI really focuses on science and tech. Startup Tucson does a great job serving other companies such as lifestyle companies, more creatives. And so both of our teams work hand in hand on making sure that entrepreneurs are supported here in Southern Arizona. And we go way back in time. I've known Liz for many years, so we are always excited to work together. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we do with UACI. So like I mentioned, we are the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. We are a part of Tech Parks Arizona. We have a couple of different sites. Right now, we're sitting at Tech Park at Reeder Road. We also have Tech Park at the Bridges, and we also have a couple of different outposts. But we really focus on serving scalable science and tech-based companies. We are actually the longest continuously ran incubator here in the state of Arizona. So we launched in 2003. We've had a handful of companies go through our program and graduate. And we've actually provided services to more than 300 different startups and companies. And we really focus on being one of the innovators here in Arizona in terms of supporting science and tech companies. We focus on three different concepts of people, place, and programming. So we have programmatic staff like myself, Aliana. We also have mentors and residents and subject matter experts that all support our companies. At the core, what we focus on is programming. This is a screenshot of our program roadmap. We have identified 28 different areas that are all really crucial for companies to be successful in when you all are launching your startups and your companies and wanting to scale up. So again, we focus more on the tech and science side. So we'll be leading the tech track for idea funding, but these different concepts are also relatable if you are starting a lifestyle company or a creative or a food company as well. So we work with our companies. You all determine where you're at in these 28 different areas, if you're exposed, in progress, or well developed. And then from there, you work with your mentor and you work with our team on really executing on these different areas to be successful, to really make sure that your company has all of the resources that you need in order to grow here in Arizona and beyond. Like I mentioned, we're a part of the larger tech park. So we have different lab spaces that are available to our companies as well. We have dry labs and wet labs and office space. We have that outpost out in Oro Valley. So again, a one-stop shop to really focus on working with startups, on wanting to be successful and grow. Right now, we have 52 companies that are active in our program. And so we're working with them every single day to make sure they have the resources they need to be successful. And this is just a screenshot of our economic output, our lifetime economic output. So as you can see, our companies have attracted over 100 million in capital, have received, upwards of 62 million in grants. And what we're really proud of is that our companies are actually generating revenue. And then since we're working with Idea Funding, which is an Arizona-based application process, we wanted to show some of the impact that we've had with our Arizona companies within our lifetime. So looking at the capital grants received, and again, that revenue generated. So we're super excited to be here and working with Startup Tucson, and we're excited to share more about idea funding in this process, but I'm going to toss it over to Liz to go over Startup Tucson.
So thanks again to everyone for being here tonight. So Startup Tucson has been working in Southern Arizona since 2012, and our whole mission is to really support entrepreneurs of any type and any size as they launch and grow their business here in Southern Arizona. If you can go to the next slide, Casey. Our program suite really focuses around our Learn, Build, Grow pipeline. So we're helping entrepreneurs at the very beginning evaluate and explore their ideas with programs like 101. And then we're helping them through the build and growth stages. So, build is really focused on launching and establishing your company. We have programs like Build and our Build to Grow workshops. And then our Grow programs are really focused on stabilizing and strengthening with our recent Grow program that just started. We also have a founders network that anybody that makes it to round one as part of IdeaFunding will automatically be enrolled in. And this access in this network really provides you with mentorship, action advising, different resources that kind of wrap around whatever other support you're receiving, whether that's from Casey or within the Startup Tucson programs. We run a number of Discover events that are really meant to connect entrepreneurs to the larger Southern Arizona ecosystem. 10 West is the largest of those. IdeaFunding is also one of those, but we also run monthly events like SIPs and Connects. So if you have not attended a Startup Tucson program, we hope that this will not be your first, and our team is really here to help support your journey outside of just idea funding. You can go to the next slide, Casey. Like we have about 400 founders that we work with annually. They are, like I said, across industries, so food, professional services, software technology, creative, and some in the nonprofit and social impact space. We also work with very diverse founders across demographics throughout Tucson. Next slide. So our largest event that we run, which IdeaFunding is a part of, is 10 West. It's returning to Southern Arizona March 24th to 29th. It is now the largest entrepreneurship and creativity festival in the Southwest, and IdeaFunding is a really important part of that. You can go to the next slide. This year, go ahead to the next slide. Um, This year, we're bringing some new components to 10 West. We have an EDU day that's adding professional certifications. We're also adding an Explorers Day. And most important to 10 West is the core conference that brings together 60 plus sessions across 3 days, really focused again, cross industry, but on founders, creators, and innovators, and providing you with really high quality sessions and content to help you build your business and take your next step. This year, we're adding a founder summit that's specifically designed to support entrepreneurs that are building and growing, a creative summit for those of you in the creative space, and entirely new this year is our culinary innovator summit. One of the exciting pieces that we have as part of 2026 is also our conference headliner, and that's the next slide, I think. Casey. Jason Pfeiffer, he's the editor-in-chief of Entrepreneur Magazine, and he will also be one of the judges for the final IdeaFunding showcase. So Jason's going to do a big keynote with all of our entrepreneurs and attendees at 10 West at the Rialto on the same day that the final showcase is. Next slide. So that brings us to IdeaFunding, which is what you were all here for. So IdeaFunding has actually been around in Tucson for over 25 years. It's been a part of 10 West for the last 11. And we've sort of redesigned some of the things for 2026. So that was one of the reasons we really wanted to take a chance to give you a little bit more information on the new model moving forward. So just if Idea this your first exposure to IdeaFunding, some of the things that are why you might want to participate. So IdeaFunding is really more than a pitch competition. It offers founders beyond that chance to pitch for the main prize money, although that might be the shiny thing. It also offers a number of really great things that help founders prepare for other things that they do. So as part of participating in IdeaFunding, as part of the application this year, you'll be preparing a pitch deck. I'll let Bjorkman share a little bit more why a pitch deck is so important, but this deck is not just something you can use for the competition. You can use it with customers, with partners, with funders, and the time that you spend building the deck to participate in this particular competition will really help with all aspects of your business. As part of participating, if you advance, you'll receive one-to-one mentorship with both UACI and Startup Tucson mentors to help coach you on how you can improve your pitch, improve the deck itself, but also your pitch presentation. So again, very important as you're sharing your company, whether that's seeking investors, seeking new clients, all of the different aspects that go into why you need to be able to tell your story really well. You'll receive feedback from judges if you're chosen to advance to round one and beyond. At each of those rounds, you'll get judge feedback as to what could be improved and what they liked about your pitch as you're moving forward through the rounds. Companies that participate get visibility not just through Tucson, but across Arizona's startup and creative communities. So we both storytell about the companies that are in the competition. We're sharing. You're able to pitch in front of live audiences, and anybody that knows more about your business can then become one of your ambassadors. And then, of course, the prize funding. The total pool will be over 50,000. That's split between a number of different prizes, but that is one of the big non-dilutive opportunities as part of Idea Funding. Like I already mentioned, every round one participant will be automatically admitted into the Startup Tucson Founders Network with year-round benefits. And any participant that advances to round one will also receive discount and complimentary tickets to 10 West to attend the rest of the festival. So, new with the model for 2026, how it works. This year, you'll apply. So, from now until February 1st, the application is open. It's a pitch, a deck forward application, meaning you have to have your full deck completed upon application. That's a little bit of a change from prior years. So, you'll submit your pitch deck as part of the first round. We'll talk about how they're going to be scored a little bit in a little bit, but that's the first step. After round one, 60 companies will be selected or after the application period, 60 companies will be selected to advance to round one. Then you'll do an in-person pre-selection pitch. That's the first down round by track. So depending on which track you apply for, you'll be with others from your same track. Those will be in person in front of our first round judges. And then from that group, 16 companies will be selected to pitch the day of. So 16 total companies will pitch on March 26th. They'll be in, again, those two tracks. From those two tracks, two companies from each will be selected to advance to the showcase to compete for the grand showcase prizes. Everyone that advances to the 26th will also be eligible for additional prizes as well as some prizes for round one. So we can advance to the next slide. The prizes for 2026 again include the main stage showcase prizes. This year, instead of one grand prize, we're going to do two equally valued awards that will be presented during the showcase, again with our celebrity judges. And those two prizes will be the Vision and the Catalyst Award, awarding both bold ideas with long-term potential and companies where funding can create immediate momentum for them. So that's a little bit of a shift from prior years. There'll also be day of track awards for the top two from each track, and additional prizes that are either eligible for the 16 that advance or up to that round one category, which is all 60. So even if you make it to round one, there's prizes that you'll be eligible to apply for. And then if you make it to the 16, more specialty prizes. And then if you make it to the end of your track, eligible for the showcase prizes. So lots of great prizes, specialty prizes, awarding various different types of things that you're doing within your companies, whether that's social impact or various different components. We can go to the next slide.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Casey.
No, go ahead, Liz.
So like I mentioned, this year we're shifting to the two-track model, and so we wanted to take a little bit of time to introduce each track. So Casey's going to go ahead and talk about who the tech track is designed for.
Yes, so we are leading the charge for the tech track. This is designed for scalable, innovation-driven companies looking for high growth opportunities. So again, thinking science and tech and scalable, this track would be fit for you. Some examples include SaaS companies, software platforms, bioscience, med tech companies, advanced materials, engineering companies, deep tech, and companies that have SBIR, STTR phase one funded teams. And so thinking about companies that are having that traction, they might have a little bit of funding, but again, wanting to really scale up. And so all of these type of companies would be a perfect fit for the tech track side of idea funding.
Great. And so the other track, the complementary track to the tech, is our creative and community innovation track. This one's focused on creative product companies and community serving ventures that are working towards building sustainable business models. So we're really emphasizing here product market fit, that you've had some initial traction, that you're doing a lot of customer and community engagement, and examples include CPG, food and beverage products, wellness and lifestyle brands, things that are design forward, different sort of services companies could fit into this, social enterprises, and community impact organizations. The one caveat on the new track system is that you may only apply to one of the two tracks. And so one sort of note related to that is if you have applied to a track and we determine on the back end that actually you should be in the other one, we'll reach out and we might ask you to switch. So that is one thing that we'll do on the back end. And you can go to the next slide, Casey. So some general rules and eligibility for 2026. These are similar to what we've had in the past, but you must meet all general rules and eligibility, and then you also must meet the eligibility for your particular track. So that's where it differs just a little bit at the track level. At a high level, you must be an Arizona-based company. The full definition of what it means to be an Arizona-based company is included in the full eligibility details on the website. So if you have a question about any of the definitions of these, I encourage you to check out the full rules and eligibility and email us if you have any sort of concerns. You may only apply to one track, as I mentioned. Your company must meet the staged revenue and funding limits for the track that you apply for, and you must be able to attend any in-person mandatory sessions. So if you you will have to apply, you'll have to be there in person at the down round. You have to be there in person at the day of pitch. Um, we can go to the next slide. So I'll turn it back to Casey to go over the specifics of the tech track eligibility.
Awesome. Thanks, Liz. So this outlines the tech startup track eligibility. Again, we highly encourage you to download the rules and the eligibility requirements and really read them, not only for the competition as a whole, but also for each track. And so we look at a couple of different areas. We look at company stage and size. Companies that apply for the tech track must have no more than 10 full-time employees, including founders, and not have exceeded 1 mil in the 12-month revenue. And so I know in the past there's been some eligibility requirements. So for the tech track, we have specific funding limits. And so companies that apply for this track must have raised no more than $500,000 in private capital, including equity, safes, or convertible notes. Funding limits also, these companies must have raised no more than 1 million in total cumulative funding. So this looks at the private capital, the non-dilutive, the grants, the SBIRs, the STTRs, loans, etc. And so please be very mindful as you all are going through the application process. If you have specific questions, don't hesitate on reaching out to our team. As we know, it can get a little confusing and we want to make sure that you are properly eligible. We also look at early stage and validation. So you must be pursuing a clearly defined commercial venture, not solely a research project. So if you are, a faculty member at different universities working on a very large research project, it has to be a company in order to be eligible. Maybe pre-revenue or pre-customer, but again, you have to demonstrate the progress toward commercialization, looking at that scaling up component. And then we also look at one of the following, a working prototype, MVP, or technical proof of concept, evidence of market demand. So looking at any pilots or partnerships that you might have, and then defensible innovations such as proprietary technology, IP strategy, or a defined regulatory pathway, as some companies might be in the biospace. So looking at making sure you're meeting this eligibility as well. And then we also have a specific area for SBIR and STTR eligibility. Phase one awardees are eligible to apply. If you have phase two and beyond, you are not eligible to apply. So again, keeping that in mind when you're looking at the funding limits and where you're at. Again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate on reaching out to us directly to make sure that you meet all of this criteria and eligibility. And again, review all of the eligibility requirements and the rules, and we'll make sure you have access to that information. Liz?
So on the creative and community innovation track, the eligibility is just slightly different to account for the different business models that take place in this track. So no more than 10 full-time employees. That's the same as the tech track. You can't have exceeded more than 750,000 in trailing 12-month revenue. So that means within the last year, how much have you made? If you've made more than 750K, then you would not be eligible. You'd be considered too far along to be eligible for idea funding. Within the funding limits, you can't have raised any more than 500,000 in outside funding. This can be a mix of different things, but 500,000 is the cap. So we also are focused on making sure that you have some early stage validation. So to be eligible for this track, we want to know that you've moved beyond ideation and you've done at least one of the following. So you can have some initial sales revenue. It doesn't mean you have to have sales revenue, but you should be showing that you have some real world validation beyond just a concept or an idea. That could look like pilot programs. It could look like paid contracts. It could look like formal partnerships. It could also look like demonstrated customer or community adoption or demand, so pre-orders, for those various different things. We just want to know that you're beyond that initial ideation stage and that you've really started to solidify the concept. We can go to the next slide. So moving into beyond eligibility and into sort of what's actually required to apply and then what's going to be required and the limitations of your pitch. One more point I want to mention that wasn't on our slides, but is sort of an overall eligibility related to the kind of early stage. Even if you at this point do not currently have a formal entity, so say you have validated your idea, but you've yet to file your LLC paperwork. You can still apply as an individual. You can apply, but you cannot receive the prize funding as an individual. So, say you were to apply as an individual, you have your name figured out, you just haven't finally gotten around to filling out that LLC paperwork. That's totally fine, but you need to be able to fill that out and us pay the entity should you win within 6 months of the competition. So that is one of the formal requirements of sort of how we define this stage. It's okay if you haven't gotten there yet, but you better get there pretty quick. Otherwise, you won't get to collect your prize funds. So back to the slide deck requirements. Your pitch deck is the primary evaluation tool that we're going to be using throughout idea funding. So there are certain technical requirements that go into your deck. The decks may be no more than 12 total slides. Slides beyond 12 will not be part of what we score. There's no required slide order or template beyond this first slide as part of your initial submission, meaning depending on which track you're pitching for, which parts of your story deserve more attention, which Bjorkvin will get into, you may spend more or less time on a particular topic from the rubric or from sort of your story. And we didn't want to dictate exactly what order you have to tell that story in. So Bjorkvin will kind of give you some tips, but that's going to be ultimately up to you. There's no true template of this is what goes on slide 1, slide 2, slide 3. With the caveat that in your initial submission, slide 1 should include the following information to help our reviewers. So it should have your company name, which track you're applying for, your founder name and your role within the company location to make sure you meet the eligibility location requirement, a one-sentence problem statement, a one-sentence solution, and your current stage of development. If we can move to the next slide. So after the initial round will just be the deck itself that we're reviewing. If you make it to round 1 and you're ready to do a live pitch, these are the requirements for that pitch that will go with your deck. All pitches throughout the entire competition are limited to 3 minutes, so it's really quick, followed by 3 minutes of Q&A with the judge. Your presenter has to be the same presenter throughout the whole competition. So if you make it to round 1 and one of your founders presents, that same founder has to be the one that presents the day of. There's no switching who's actually doing the pitch. The other thing that needs to stay consistent throughout is your concept. So whatever concept you present as part of your initial deck needs to be the one that you present at round 1 and needs to be the one that you present the final day. Your slides can change, they should change as you meet with mentors, but your actual concept, you shouldn't one day have a brick and mortar and then the next day it's something totally different. It needs to stay the same from beginning to end. Next slide.
Yes, so this is a screen grab of the Tech Startup Track rubric. And so again, we want you all to be very familiar with this rubric, really understand the different categories that our reviewers focus on as they are evaluating not only your first initial pitch deck, but as we go throughout the competition, this rubric stays the same for the entirety of the tech track. So looking at the different categories, problem identification, solution, value prop, customer engagement, market opportunity, revenue model, your team, and then overall presentation quality and storytelling. And so please review this. There will be a scoring scale of 1 to 5 that our reviewers have in terms of grading and evaluating each application on this category. So please review this and understand each concept very thoroughly. And again, we'll leave some time at the end for questions. I'll toss it over to Liz for the creative track.
So similar to the tech track, our creative track rubric includes these 8 different points for evaluation. So your problem or opportunity, the solution that you're presenting, your value proposition and how you're different, your understanding of your customer or your community that you're trying to serve, the market opportunity and potential impact of the idea, your revenue model and how sustainable that revenue model is, your team, your partners, and your capacity to execute, and then overall your presentation quality and storytelling. So this will be what both the decks and then the live pitches combined with the decks are evaluated on throughout the entire creative track. So some last few notes about deck guidelines. Like we said before, the decks may evolve between rounds based on your mentor feedback. The deadlines for each of those rounds when your deck will be submitted are included in the overall full timeline. You may use appendix slides to refer to during Q&A during the live pitches. For those of you that don't know what appendix slides are, they're kind of bonus slides that go beyond your 12 that are meant to dive deep into a particular thing. So say you were a company that had a really aggressive go-to-market strategy where you were focusing on ad sales and you really couldn't get that across in your regular financial slide. So you wanted to be able to show a snapshot of how aggressive that timeline was. That could be something that if a judge then asked you that question, like, how do you think you might possibly make that much money that quickly with ad sales? You could refer to your appendix slide. They will not be evaluated when we do scoring as part of the first round, but if you want them later for the live rounds, they are allowed. Other things to note is that media animation, video, and audio components are not supported. So those just don't ever seem to work quite right, and then it trips up our founders, and so those are not supported. We do allow physical props or product samples during the live pitches, provided they don't interfere with staging, timing, technical setup. So we are going to go founder after founder when we do live pitches. So if yours requires a lot of setup or a lot of breakdown, it probably will not work. But that's something we would address later on. Judges and feedback. So external judges will help select companies throughout the rounds of competitions, and they will use the rubrics that we've already presented to you. Feedback will not be provided in the initial application review, but collective feedback from the judges will be provided following the round 1 pitches. And with that, one more slide. We are ready to dive into the pitch training, and we are very happy to invite Björkfinn Benediktsson to take over to do this section for us. Björkfinn is
Uh,
sharing the slide again. You want to do your own introduction?
yeah, no, how about you do it?
That's from memory.
Yeah.
Björkfinn is an entrepreneur himself, serial entrepreneur. He is entrepreneur in residence for the McGuire Entrepreneurship Center for the University of Arizona. He is also a mentor in residence for UACI, in addition to a mentor for Startup Tucson. He has coached countless founders throughout the year in pitch training, and we are excited that he is going to be the one that's delivering this training today. We can see your full, not just the slides.
Hmm. Not
And we
just
can
this?
see
Oh, wait.
not the Canva deck at all.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. Wrong screen.
Lots of screens.
Too many screens.
How's that?
There we go.
All right.
Did I miss anything?
No, I mean that's fine.
Okay.
That's good enough. That's definitely the you know that
The gist of it.
there's not
Okay.
enough time. There's not enough time. So let's talk about the purpose of a pitch. So, um, 3 minutes is not enough. So you want to think about how to encompass everything that you've done in a way that makes it desirable to say yes to, or desirable to give you prize money, things like that, right? So, in a sentence, a pitch is just storytelling to sell your idea, story selling, if you will. And so not only is this pitch valuable, obviously, for idea funding, applying for idea funding and pitch competitions in general, but it also does give you clarity. It's an easier way to write a business plan, if anything. It helps you think through the whole business, helps you think through all the things that you are supposed to know, and it helps you get to grips with how to explain your business, how you explain your venture, so that you can sell it more effectively, right? It becomes a communication tool as much as anything else. And then it is reusable for various audiences and goals. Once you put all that stuff down, you may need to use a slide or two for, other things outside of just, pitching your business, right? And so what's in a pitch? It's in a list, and this is basically very similar to what the judges score, but I'm gonna basically go zoom out a little bit because in general, and not just for idea funding, but if you participate in other pitch competitions, this is the basics that are asked for or that you need to know. It's what is the problem or the opportunity? What's your solution? What's your unique value, your competitive advantage, your secret sauce? What is the business model? What is the market size? Who is the customer? What is your team? How do your financials look like? And what is the timeline of what you have done and what you are going to do? And we'll go into detail on that in the next few slides. So this is, similar to what the judges for idea funding scores: the problem and opportunity, the product or tech solution, the unique value, the customer understanding, and the market size, the business and the revenue model, team and partners, and then obviously presentation quality and storytelling. And so when it comes to the tech, sort of the problem identification in the tech side of things, you want to have evidence of a real problem, and you want to have that you want to prove the feasibility and validation of that problem. So you don't come in with, flying cars or teleportation devices or, the super soldier serum, unless you bring Captain America to idea funding, you don't want to just make stuff up. It has to be real, right? And then in the creative side, you want to have evidence of the opportunity and how it is different than, say, anything else that's similar. For instance, when you go to the supermarket, there's lots of different brands out there, and they all maybe are selling the same thing, but what differentiates them is the brand or the branding themselves, the brand itself, right? Um, and so the problem you're solving or the opportunity you are going after is these are sort of questions you want to be able to answer. What is the pain point? What pain point are you solving, or what unique experience are you delivering from the creative side? Who experiences it? How big is it? Is it urgent? If it's not an urgent problem, you often get customers who are picking between, solving the problem or doing nothing. And if the cost of doing nothing isn't very high, it's not that feasible of a problem to solve if people can just ignore it, right? It has to be somewhat of an urgent problem. And what is the cost of not solving the problem? So those two things kind of go together. And so the solution, if you lay out the solution, lay out the problem, and then you want to tie your solution to it as the solution to said problem. And so you want to explain that what your product is, if it's a service or innovative venture or a drug or new way of skydiving, who knows? What is it that what is unique about your product that will solve this problem? Why is it better? What does it look like? If I were to purchase this problem or purchase the solution, what exactly is it that I get? Right? And then what is the result that the customer gets? Because a person or a customer isn't buying your problem. They are buying your solution, buying your product. They are buying the state of life that they will be in once they have used your product to solve their problem. So what you want to basically feed your story and your pitch through the lens of the customer journey of what they get and what the transformation the customer goes through where he or she sees a problem, sees your product, solves their problem, and then has a new lease on life. Your product is not the solution. It is the vehicle to a better state or, less costs if it's a B2B solution or a better, a, 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 a better experience in some way. And that brings me to the unique value proposition of like what makes you different, right? In the tech space, what makes you different is maybe that your unique patentable solution is just very different and does something that no other business on the market does. And that's basically your unique value proposition, your secret sauce, right? Can you do something faster, cheaper, better, right? From the creative side, it might just be something that's unique, something that makes the customer feel better about themselves, right? Take liquid death, for instance. It's just water, right? But there's a coolness factor to the brand that makes people buy that over just bottled water, right? And then judges or investors very much want to know how you can defend your product. Do you have patents or trademarks or trade secrets that you can basically defend your business with? And what is your core competency? So when you go into the marketplace, you are obviously going up against maybe some incumbent competitors, right? And sometimes some big market shareholders, right? And so what you want to often think about is what is it that you do better than anybody else? And so is that a niche or is that the core competency that sets you apart? You don't want to be everything to everybody. You want to be very specifically solving a problem for a very particular customer, right? The more specific you can be, the easier it is to understand. And when it comes to market size, we often talk about TAM, SAM, and SUM. You'll see these acronyms thrown around a lot. And it's the total available market, the serviceable available market, and the serviceable obtainable market, right? So let's say in the, what's a good example here? So in the beer space, for instance, there is the non-alcoholic market. That's the total available market, right? And then maybe you have a connection with a distributor that you have connected with, and they can only distribute in a particular state, and that could be your serviceable available market. And then you talk to the grocery stores, and they will only put your non-alcoholic beer in certain stores in Tucson, and that's your serviceable obtainable market. In my case, I'm in the audio industry, and I help home studio musicians and bedroom producers make better music. And so the music industry is a giant TAM, total available market. But there's less people that are musicians, but also work on their own music and don't hire audio engineers, right? And so that becomes my serviceable available market. And then you have fewer people that not only are musicians and work on their own music and don't want to hire audio engineers and want to learn everything themselves, and they want to buy training and software that helps them do that. And that's my serviceable obtainable market. So it becomes this sort of funnel where you can think of it as a Venn diagram as well. And so when it comes to the market, the growth rate is also very important. If you are in a stagnant market that isn't growing, that's usually not a good sign. If you have an exploding market, you obviously that's good, but you also want to make sure to ask yourself whether that is a trend that's going to die or if it's an actual sustainable growth. And then you want to be able to validate the claims that you have during your pitch with any primary or secondary market research to validate that market. If you are pre-revenue or in the idea phase, you want to have done customer discovery, customer interviewing to get sort of approval from hopeful customers or from customers that might be interested in your product. If you are a little bit further along, hope maybe you have letters of intent from businesses that want to use your product. And secondary research is basically being able to showcase the market size and the strength of the opportunity, the scale of the opportunity, but nothing beats having done sales. There is no better validation than revenue. And then the target customer persona. Like I said before, you don't want to be everything to everybody. You want to be something specific to a very particular person. So if you are early stage, you want to be thinking about, and you're going into a big market, you want to be thinking about who your early adopter is. What are the characteristics of that person? Think of them as a character in a story. If you could write a paragraph of their lives down in your journal or in your Google Docs or whatever. How do they go about their lives? How do they come across the problem that they face? And how can you swoop in this story as the mentor that helps them solve that problem so that they have a better life afterwards? Obviously, demographics and psychographics are very important. Demographics are pretty simple these days. The markets have become more of, what's the word? More unique or more specific. So you can't just advertise your stuff to, over 65 females in this zip code, right? It's more that you're trying to go after, you need to be more specific. You need to know what they like, what they dislike, what their point of view is, what their worldview is, and things like that. So I like I like spending a lot of time, and I could spend all of this training just talking about the customer persona, but trying to be as specific and making your customer avatar as real as possible gives you a really good target, gives you a really good goal, and kind of can, if you can put that person in the back of your mind whenever you are selling your product or whenever you're talking about the product, you have more clarity and focus on who it is for, who your business is helping. And so obviously nothing works without the model around the business. And so you need to be able to make money somehow. And there's a lot of different ways to do it depending on your business. There's the B2B, you're either you maybe your business sells to other businesses to help that business do something better or cheaper or faster. Or you're a business to customer business. Basically, if you're in the creative track, you're more likely to be a business or B2C business where you're selling products to a consumer that is either consuming them for fun or for education or for some form of improvement, but it is not. But they are not buying it and then expensing it off of their expense account, buying it with the business credit card, right? Um, Licensing is a possible model that you could think about. Subscription, having monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue, is a solid thing to go after, because having recurring revenue through subscriptions gives you a solid baseline for revenue. And so you're always going after you basically have customers that don't leave, that just keep paying month after month or year after year. And so that gives you a bigger strategic advantage, and usually a longer runway when it comes to your cash flow. Commission-based business models, basically the affiliate scheme that may not be applicable to most of you, but that's basically selling other people's products and making a cut off of those sales. And then you want to think about what the customer acquisition strategy is. Are you selling your product through advertising? If so, where are you advertising? Are you doing digital ads only? Are you putting whole page ads in niche industry magazines? Are you cold calling businesses? Are you doing relationship selling? What is the customer acquisition strategy, and what does it cost you to acquire one customer? That is a number that is very good to know, because you can strategize around it. And then the financial model, in my world, and when I ask for pitches at the McGuire Center, and usually for more advanced sort of competitions where you have investors, or when you're pitching in front of investors, such as Arizona Tech investors, they want a real 5-year pro forma, but you don't need to do that for idea funding. But you do want to know what the projected revenue is. You want to have an idea of your cost structure, what your margins are, how much does it cost to run the business, and then what your funding needs are. Having a team slide, or being able to talk about who is on your team and what makes you qualified, is important. You want to highlight any and all expertise and credibility you have. You also want to mention any mentors and advisors or previous investors, anything you can add to increase your credibility. And then timeline, judges especially, want to know what you have done so far, and then what you're going to do. What are you going to accomplish? If we were to give you the prize money, what are you going to do with it? It's good to have a plan for that. And then at a high level, it's good to think about what your exit strategy is. Are you gonna run this business until you leave it to your children, or are you gonna try to build it to sell or to get acquired, or whatnot? So that's what your exit strategy is. And then 3 minutes is never enough for this sort of all of these things. So you want to prioritize what uh, reinforces and strengthens your pitch as much as possible. But in general, you want to talk about who it's for, what the problem or opportunity is, why your solution is so important, what you have validated, and how you can argue for the reason for the existence of your business, and why your team is the team to go after it, right? What's the biggest, what's the next thing you're gonna do? And then when you are practicing your pitch, one of my pet peeves is people tend to use overly complicated words. And so they will say things like utilize when use is enough. And when you are looking at 3 minutes, if you can cut, seconds off each sentence, you will gain a lot of extra time that you can put something important in there. So when you are rehearsing, when you are practicing, really think about every word you are saying and whether or not whether there is a more concise way of saying things, whether you are repeating things in a different way. Sometimes we like to feel smart by saying something a few times, but you're really only saying the same thing 3 times. And that in a 3-minute pitch is just a waste of time. So this is something that I highly recommend, being pretty brutal and critical of yourself when you are rehearsing or when you are putting this together, because it'll be beneficial in the long run. It'll be beneficial when you're on stage. And also, it will give you, if you've saved up a few seconds, it'll also give you some time to breathe. And so before we leave, I wanted to talk about, I have 2 different slideshows, pitch decks from previous years. And so this is Ray Ray's. Everybody can see this, right? I think I haven't changed anything on the screen share. Yeah, Christian says good. Okay, great. So Ray Ray's Sonoran Spirit Tea. I'm sure some of you are probably familiar with that. She was a winner a few years ago. She spends a lot of effort on branding and her authenticity. Rachel is the face of the brand. She talks, obviously there's a bunch of hard seltzers and hard teas and things like that around, but she doubles down on the Sonoran side of things, being very Tucson, being very brand heavy, being very sort of having it be about the place. The brand is about the place that it's in, right? Um, she also talks about things that she has accomplished, right? She says here what she's done, and these are impressive things. She also lays out where her drink would be enjoyed. She talks about the opportunity that her drink could be enjoyed at. So sports, resorts, poolside, these are all places where money can be made by selling this tea, right? This speaks to the opportunity where this would sell, even if there are other drinks available. She does spend time on showing the growth of the market and how she is in a growing niche and not just in yet another drink category. Spiked tea is the fastest growing sector, and it is a separate market than other beverages. You if you want a beer, you'll buy a beer, but if you're not in the mood for a beer, you might buy a spiked tea, and maybe you become a spiked tea convert where you just substitute to that completely, right? And so she's doubling down on that. And then this growth strategy slide is kind of the inverse of what she talked about earlier, where she said she showed you what she's done. And because she showed you what she has done, you're more likely to believe that she'll be able to do this, right? Where she's future pacing and showing you what she's going to do with the money that she's going to get from the prize money or other funding. This is her goal. And because she has shown traction, she has a product, the product is very prominently shown in the slides, you're more likely to believe it. And she talks about her needs and what she would use the prize money for. And so when it comes to the creative track, branding and authentic sort of personal branding and authenticity tied into the business opportunity you are pitching is pretty important. And then she also cherry picks the things that make her case the strongest. Obviously, if you go through this deck and then you review the rubric, she touches upon most of it, right? But she will pick the things that she knows will get her the best score, right? And then a second deck here is Reglagene. This is a UACI tech company. And it is it is the opposite because it is there's a pharmaceutical medical company, and it is much more complicated, but it's a very tech-heavy deck. But starts by laying out the problem in a visual way. It talks about the lack of innovation in an incredibly important field, cancer therapy. It uses visual aids to evoke emotion, to drive the point home. They talk about their solution and how they are different. They use visual aids to sort of showcase a fairly complex product, right? They use a marketing positioning diagram to show the audience how they differentiate themselves from pre-existing competitors. This is a very, very common matrix that's used in pitches, is showing you, here's all the competitors, here's our X and Y axis. We're actually going to compete in this spot where we're going to be differentiating in this way, making us unique and therefore defensive or defensible in that sort of way. All right. They do the typical TAM, SAM, and SUM diagram and show how big of a problem this can be. $2 billion market. Investors, especially tech, medical, bio investors, want to know that there is, big money to be made in these fields, so they have to be able to show that. And then they get technical because they have to. It is a technical field, there's a technical industry, the technical business, and so they have to show how they are different, and hopefully during the pitch, obviously when you are pitching and you have visual aids behind you, what you say should be reinforcing what is on the screen as well. But they do a deep dive into their unique value proposition. They talk about what they are doing, how they are different, why it makes sense for clinicians, how it avoids things that are problematic with current options. They show, the manufacturing process and how a lot of very sort of difficult to understand slides, but things that they have to show because of the nature of their business. They would not do well if this slide deck was all just like about the personal branding and authenticity of the clinician founder, right? It has to be technical in order to showcase their solution. They talk about the IP. This is very desirable for investors to know that there is defensibility in such a big industry with such a big business. And it shows here that Reglogene owns 100% of the IP, and they are doing with patents as well. So this is a super important part of their pitch. And then they have the investment slide, basically this is a persuasion slide of why people should invest in them, why they should, in the case of if this was for prize money, why they should award the prize money to them. And then notice that neither of these slides are particularly amazing designs, but they do the job. Right? Here's a timeline slide, and then here's a team slide to increase the credibility, showcase like just the level of expertise that is behind this business. And so neither of these slides are particularly, they're not made by amazing designers or anything like that, but they come across, they put all the information across that they need to do. They cherry pick what is most important for them to tell the story, and they maybe reduce the importance of the things that maybe isn't as developed as other things. So what I often tell students that are pitching is I wouldn't spend a lot of time mentioning things that work against you or will prompt questions that you don't have an answer or I don't have a good answer to. Uh, so it's about weaving together a business story that really like persuades the the investor or the judge or the committee that is approving your application that your business is something to invest in, something to say yes to, and you have to have all of those business fundamentals in place, show the validation, show that there is either creative branding and a big opportunity or a real big problem to go after, and that you are the best suited for that. Is that does that make sense?
Great. Thank you, Björkman, for the pitch training. I think there were some questions in the chat, so I'll just clarify. So, Rachel Ray Ray's presentation was 2023 main stage. So we did not have the exact same creative rubric. So you'll notice there were like a few things that were a little bit different. She had, I think, 9 slides total. Versus like what we are allowing now is 12. So some stuff has changed. And then for Reglagene, Christian asked, that is actually their investor deck. So it didn't have their terms, but that is like what they would present as part of like more of like a 10 to 15 minute presentation, which you could tell many more slides, a lot more in depth when they are in the technical pieces. The purpose of giving you 2 different examples was more to show that there's really a lot of difference, to Bjorkman's point, in the storytelling of what will come through. And the most important thing for your deck is to tell your true authentic story, spend as long as you need to in that 3 minutes on the pieces that are most important and most developed. And if there's parts that aren't, or you don't want to necessarily spend as long, just don't highlight those as much. You still need to hit every point of the rubric because the judges will score against the rubric. So don't just skip something. But if you are a founder with 20 plus years of experience, but you don't have some other pieces worked out quite so much, spend a little bit longer talking about your team and your experience and why that's so important to what you're doing. So